Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 6. This is Felicia Matas, and this week's topic is about performance management skills. So, we've been talking about the performance management system as a whole, and this chapter is particularly important because managers need to possess very important skills to be able to manage the performance of their employees. They serve as coaches, they need to observe the performance and document it accurately while giving positive and negative feedback and conducting performance reviews and meetings. So, a lot of stress on managers to do this, especially if managers have issues with confrontation, if they have employees that are difficult to manage. This can be an area of issue for managers, but it's also one of the most critical pieces to the performance management program as a whole. So, first, we're going to talk about coaching. So, you see here from the little cartoon, the manager, is saying that the employee's not been living up to his expectation. So I'm going to spend more time coaching you. I will be with you every minute of the day, which causes the employee to quit. And it's kind of funny, but a little dark at the same time because if there was a collaboration between the manager and the employee, this could eliminate that stress of employees feeling like they need to leave. um, it's important that when coaching, it is directive and it is motivational. So employees should feel like the manager wants them to be successful, and they know that they have the support of their manager. So even if they're receiving negative feedback, it should be done in a way that the manager, the employee feels like the manager really cares about their growth and their development. And another thing to note is that coaching should be done on a daily basis. So managers should be in the know on what employees are doing. The work that they're doing should ladder up to the goals that they've created. And there should be daily communication between the manager and the employee where they're receiving coaching. There are 4 different types of coaching styles, as you can say. The first one is called the driver coaching style, and this one is very assertive. Some of the characteristics is they tend to speak quickly and firmly, and they really like to talk about tasks and facts. They're not very good at expressing themselves, and they are, have a narrow range of personal feelings towards others, according to Agwinus. So this type is more like down to business, like let's drive results, let's drive these sales, let's drive these goals. No time for side chat. Then we have the persuader, and this type wants to sell to the employee. So they're trying to persuade them of why what they're doing is beneficial to the organization. Persuaders are also assertive, but they tend to be more communicative with their body gestures. They like to talk more about people and relationships, and then they like to, share a more broad range of their feelings. The third one is labeled amiable, and they want everybody to be happy. So it's like they want to have a friendly, happy environment where everyone feels good. So a lot of their decisions are based on feelings. They're not as assertive, and then they seldom interrupt others or and they do make conditional statements, and they often pause when they're talking. They want to know what others feel. They're bringing them into the conversation. And then the final coaching style is called the analyzer. And this type really likes, for things to be done in a very organized, process oriented manner. So there should be documentation on the way things are handled. This is the type of manager that feels like, if an employee dies or, wins the lottery tomorrow, there should be a process in place so that somebody new can come in and do that job and that it's a seamless transition. It is important to note that there is not one style that is better than the other. Um, Good coaching, you'll pull from multiple. You'll always have one that's your primary um, way of coaching, just based on your personality style. But a good coach will be able to communicate with their direct reports in a way that direct report can receive. And then going back to the coaching process, it starts at the beginning with setting developmental goals. After those goals are set, you identify any resources and strategies that are necessary to help the employee be successful, and then you implement those strategies. And that is what the employee is going to play out when they are working for X amount of time. So if you've set it for the entire year, you know, you're doing that daily coaching and progress with them, but they understand what's expected of them. And then after you've implemented those strategies, the manager is observing and documenting any developmental behaviors. So, making sure that they do have those resources and strategies, but also making sure that they are developing in a way that they should while constantly giving feedback. And then it goes right back to the beginning. So, this is a cycle that continually happens. And during this coaching process of observing and documenting, it is very important that the manager knows what's going on with the employee. So, yes, and managers can be busy. They have their own work to do in addition to, managing their direct reports. And it can be challenging to observe employees as they, develop every single day. And then if an employee is doing developmental tasks, such as reading a book or reading an article or something like that, it can be difficult to engage, right in that moment with them. But it is still very important that the manager give feedback, that they document that feedback, and that they know that the employee has understood what it is that they're saying. And oftentimes it's easier to lean towards giving negative feedback, but employees need to be praised as well. This is a human nature that if you praise someone and let them know that they're doing a good job, they just want to go above and beyond. They want to do that much better. And also, you can think of it as an emotional bank account. So when you're making deposits into that bank account, when you do have to provide negative feedback and make a withdrawal from that emotional bank account, you're building that trust with the direct report so that they understand that you care about them, that you have their best interest at heart. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is necessary to discipline employees and sometimes even terminate them. So, this can happen if an employee is resistant to feedback. And sometimes it's a breakdown in that communication if an employee feels that a manager, has not made enough deposits and that they feel attacked. Sometimes they can resist that feedback. There's multiple reasons why employees will resist feedback. Some may be oppositional, and if they have a sense of arrogance about them where they think they can do no wrong, then perhaps they're less likely to receive that feedback. It is important that feedback is given verbally, so that day to day, open dialogue between the employee and the manager, but it is also important that managers document, especially if an employee is having disciplinary problems. And the reason that this is important is because if that employee decides to retain an attorney and go after the organization for some sort of discrimination or wrongdoing, it is important that the manager has documented very well the issues that the employee was having, how they can remedy them. So, going back to the beginning, giving them those tools and the strategies, making sure that they've done everything in their power to help the employee be successful. And then sometimes ultimately it does lead to determination. And there is something that some organizations do, which is called giving employees a 1-day decision-making leave. So it's a paid leave where employees can take that day and really decide if this is where they want to be. Employees, they have performance issues for various reasons. It could be personal things that are going on in their life, with their family. They could be going through a divorce. you know a loved one is not doing well, they're ill. Just different things going on in their life, their personal life, that transfers over and ends up showing itself through their work. And they're not performing as well as they have in the past. Other times it's just employees are done. They just feel like they're above the work. They just don't want to do it anymore. So offering that time to allow the employee to decide, especially if it's gotten to that point where it is going to be a termination. Some employees like to salvage their dignity and be able to resign, as opposed to having that termination on their record. And then after you've been documenting, you've been having these daily conversations with your employee, both positive and negative, there will come a time for a performance review meeting. Some organizations do this at the mid-year and year-end, where they will have a meeting with the employee, let them know whether they are on track or off track. And this can conjure up some feelings of dissatisfaction from employees. If they feel that they have been doing, their best, and sometimes as people, we tend to, overestimate the work that we do. So if a manager is telling us, actually, you didn't do as well in this area as we would have hoped, employees may not receive that very well. It is important that the manager is very professional in the meeting, that it's very flowy, and that you let them know the objective and the outcome. And when you're giving a rating to an employee or giving them feedback, they should not be surprised. So if the manager is doing their job properly and they are coaching this employee and they're providing feedback all throughout the year, when they get to this performance review meeting, they should have a really good idea of how they have been doing throughout that period of time. And here's another cartoon. Um, it's kind of funny, a good example of a boss who's, seems aloof. He's telling her, I gave you a low performance ranking because you haven't bothered me all year. So logically, if your job were difficult and important, you would have brought me more issues to resolve. And the employee's thinking, like, you can't think of any other reason that I might not bring you issues. And then he calls her lazy, not even taking into consideration that he's hired a high performing individual that doesn't need his help and doesn't need to come to him. Now, if this was something that the manager preferred, that that's something that should have been talked about throughout the year. Keep me up to date, let me know how things are going, send me recaps, loop me in on emails, so on and so forth. But this employee seems very surprised by this review. And then the two questions that I pose to you is the first one, being a manager of people, it can be a difficult task. And some of you who are reading this are people managers, and perhaps you've come into contact with an employee that has been really difficult. Maybe your personalities clashed. Maybe you had to give difficult feedback, and from that point forward, it just there was a change or a shift in the relationship. The question is, how can you remain grounded in godly principles when you are coaching a difficult employee? And then the second question is, imagine you are a manager with a driver coaching style. What techniques would you use to give feedback to an employee who has a personality that is relational? Again, going back to the earlier slides, it is important that the manager is able to coach and meet that employee where they are. So this is a question really speaking to that. So thank you all for joining me for this presentation. I look forward to hearing your responses in the comments.